Number one, you guys all know how to write the equation of a line. I am not giving you a formula for slope or writing the equation, so you guys can handle that. No problems there. Number two, if we look at C, we know it is perpendicular to 3x minus 4y equals 2. So what we have to do first is find the slope. That means you need to get it in y equals mx plus b form. So if we subtract the 3x, divide by negative 4. So what's my slope of this line? 3/4. Okay, but I'm writing the equation perpendicular. So if it's perpendicular, what slope would I be using?
The opposite reciprocal.
Opposite reciprocal. Flip it and change the sign. And then it goes through the origin. What's that point?
0.
So then you can do your y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So you just get y equals negative 4/3 x. D tells me they are parallel. What does parallel mean? Same slope. So we have to get in y equals mx plus b form. So I subtract my 2x, divide by 3. So what slope will I use? Negative 2/3, because parallel is the same. And then I told you it goes through the point negative 3, 2. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So that would be a negative 2/3 x minus 2. We distribute, add our 2 over, we get negative 2/3 x. Okay, so parallel, same slope, perpendicular, opposite reciprocals. We didn't have questions on A or E from that. Part A, horizontal line, the equation of a horizontal line is always y equals a number. So y equals the y value of your point, y equals 3. E, the perpendicular, is x equals, so it's just x equals the x value of that point. So there'll probably be several questions about writing equations of lines on your test. Are we okay with this? Okay. We did not ask about number 3, but you should be able to look at a graph, tell me domain and range of that graph, check if it's a function, and then answer like increasing, decreasing constants. So we don't have any issues there. Let's look at number 4. With these, the biggest thing is knowing what it means. When I say f of negative 4, that means if x equals negative 4, find your y. And I said to do that for the graph in 3a. So if you look back, 3a. And it looks something like this. So when my x is negative 4, that's right here on the graph, what's the y value of that point?
0.
0. So understanding what that function notation means and being able to evaluate them. Number 5, domain, range, and slope of our lines. Do we need to go over that at all? Number 7. On A and B, a parent function with 3 exact points is required, as well as your final graph. Number 7, part C, is a piecewise, so we can't do a parent function. But we need to graph each piece. So what we did is we made a T-chart for each. We had some trouble with this on the quiz, so everybody make sure you understand these. When I am graphing this first piece, what do I have to plug in first? 0. Even though it doesn't have an equal to, I plug that in, and I know it will be an open circle because it wasn't equal to. Alright, then I need things less than 0. So maybe -1 and a -2. So if I put in 0, the opposite of 0 is 0. Opposite of -1, opposite of -2. 0, 0 is open. 1, 2, 2. So it looks like that. And it only goes that direction because this piece is only for the x's smaller than 0. Second piece. This one tells me when x is greater than or equal to 0. So I have to put in 0 and then things larger. Since it had an equal to, it will be a closed circle. So 2 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. What happens if you have an open and a closed circle at the same spot? It's just closed. And 2 and 2, 4. Alright, you will have a piecewise function on your test. So make sure you know how to graph those. You make a t-chart for each piece. And at the end, a good check is it's a function, so it should pass the vertical line test. Do we need to talk about A or B on that one? Problem 8 is our symmetry. So there are different ways of figuring out this symmetry. If you know what the graph looks like, you could certainly use that to help you. X squared is what? Parabola. What would the plus 7 do to it? Move it up 7. What's the 3 do? Stretch it. So I have this skinny parabola that's been shifted up 7. Alright, if you drew yourself a graph of that, can you tell me what's it symmetric to? The y-axis. It's the same on both sides. Algebraically, we talked about if something is symmetric to the x, I have to be able to fold it across the x. So y and negative y have to give you the same thing. So you replace your y with a negative y. If it turns into the original equation, it's a yes, otherwise it's a no. So this one would be no. To check the y-axis, what do we do? Everybody's with me here? Okay, so if I plug in a negative on my x, what happens if you take negative x times negative x? And that's what I started with, so this one is a yes. How do we check origin? So you have negative y equals 3 times negative x squared plus 7. So the negative on the x goes away, but the y does not. So that one is a no. So, on the test, you should be able to do that. You should be able to support your answer in some way, shape, or form. Whether it's showing the work, or if it's something that you know the graph of, being able to draw the graph and tell me. Even, odd, or neither. Even is the same thing as what? Even means symmetric to the y, and odd means symmetric to the origin.
Attention please, the following is just a drill. We will be evacuating. Again.
Right. So this one, because it's symmetric to the y-axis, it would be even. What if, I'm going to add in a question, so you can do this in the margin or something. What if I said, is f of x equal to x squared minus 5x, even, odd, or neither? All right. So our options. F of x is the same thing as y. We could do it like we did the last one. If I'm checking even, I'm checking symmetric to the y-axis. If I'm checking odd, I'm checking symmetric to the origin. Because remember, if it's symmetric to the x, it's not a function. So you could write it as y equals and do the exact same thing we did on the last one. When they were written in function notation, we also talked about an easier option is all you have to really do is plug in the negative x. If I take a negative and square it, it's positive. Negative 5 times negative x is positive 5x. Is that the same as what I started with? No. Is that the exact opposite of what I started with? No. So this is neither.
So if it's the exact opposite.
That's odd. Opposite is odd, same as even. So if I said like f of x equals 4x to the 4th plus 3. Plug in your negative. What happens if you take a negative to the 4th? Is this what I started with?
Yes.
Yes, so this function is even. If I said two x cubed minus x. If I put in a negative x. If you take a negative cubed minus negative x. Okay, what happens if I take a negative to the 3rd? Still negative, so times 2 would make this a negative 2x cubed. Minus negative x plus x. Is that what I started with? It's the exact opposite, so this is odd. So if it was written in function form, it was a little bit easier because all you had to really do is plug in the negative. And if you get the same thing back, it's even. If you get the exact opposite, it's an odd function. Are we okay with that? So we are ready for question 10, part D. So, part D wants the domain of f divided by g. So let's set it up. If I did f divided by g. With domain, there's two things we have to worry about. Radicals and fractions. If we have a fraction, what has to be true? Or what can't happen? Maybe I should ask.
4x plus 4 cannot equal 0.
The bottom of a fraction can never be 0. So 4x can't be negative 4, so x can't be negative 1. Now on the test, I would expect you to then write this in interval notation. So what would we write?
Negative infinity to negative 1 would be negative 1 to infinity.
On f. Okay, so f is asking quite a bit. On the test, if I gave you that, I would actually break this into 3 questions. So I would say, first thing, find f of x plus h. Okay, that's sometimes confusing for people, but if it is, think about numbers. If I asked you to find f of 4, what would you do? Put 4 in for x. So if I ask you to find f of x plus h, you are plugging x plus h in for your x. Okay, how do you do x plus h squared? Boy, remember your order of operations. You have to do that exponent first. So that would give us x squared plus xh and plus xh would be 2xh plus h squared. Distribute your 3. that's my f of x plus h. Second thing, I would say find f of x plus h minus f of x. How do we do that? F of x plus h is what we just got. So I take that answer. And I'm subtracting f of x, which was my original. So if you want to subtract, distribute your negative. 3x squared and negative 3x squared cancels. Negative 2 and positive 2 cancels. So we get 6xh plus 3h squared. And then I would say find f of x plus h minus f of x divided by h. So what do we do there?
Plug in for 6xh plus 3h squared divided by h.
The numerator is what we just got. Divide that by h, so you get 6x plus 3h. Is there anything else on question 10 that we need to talk about? Question 11. Make sure, we didn't ask about A and B, but do you guys know how to find those domains and write your answers interval notation? Okay. Part C says G composed with F of 4.8. Another way that can be written is G of F of 4.8. So you start on the inside. I go to function F, which is -2 over x minus 5, and I am replacing my x with 4.8. You get -2 over -0.2, which is 10. So f of 4.8 is 10. You plug 4.8 into the equation F, you get out 10. Now I'm putting that into G. G is the square root of what we put in minus 6. So the square root of 4 is 2. So compositions, you work inside out. Take your x, plug it into the first one, take that answer and plug it into the next. Is that okay? Question number 12. There will be one like this on your test. We have F, we have G. So I asked you to find the domain of G composed with F. That means G of F of X. If I am asking you to find the domain of this, you have to actually work it out first. So we start on the inside. What is F of X? I am plugging that into G. So G is 4 over the thing I'm plugging in plus 6. Now this is bad notation. We don't leave a fraction in a fraction. So how do we fix it?
Times f minus.
That gives me 4x over -5 divided by x times x. It's -5 plus 6 times x. That's my composition. For the domain, make sure you know this. Where are the two places we look? Okay. We know that no matter what I put in, if I pick a number, the very first thing I have to do is this inside function. So I have to look there, and I have to check my final answer and put both of those together. They're both fractions. In a fraction, we know the bottom can't be 0. So this one says x can't be 0. This one, -5 plus 6x can't be 0. 6x can't be 5. My rule, I told you I wanted interval notation, but if you had more than one value x couldn't equal, you were allowed to list them. So on the test, I would accept this, or if you wrote the interval notation, it's everything smaller than 0, everything between 0 and 5/6, and everything bigger than 5/6. Any questions there? 13 and 14. These are the questions about circles. The first one is just the equation. And if you know what the equation of a circle looks like, it's not too hard to find. So you do need to know this. X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. So if we plug in, what's my h value? -4, so it becomes an x plus 4 squared. Y minus k is 7 squared. Equals r squared. 3/4 squared will give me 9/16. And that's all I'm looking for on that one. Just plugging in your numbers. The second one, I'm asking you to figure out if this is a circle. So to do that, we tried to take our answer and turn it back into something of this form. So put your x's together. Put your y's together. And what do we do with that -5? Add it to the other side. Okay, then we completed the square. So we did 6 divided by 2 squared. So that's 3 squared is 9. But if I add 9 to one side, add it to the other. We do the same thing with our y's. So we have -4 divided by 2, which is -2. Squared is 4. So if I add 4 to one side, we add it to the other. We've created a perfect square. So our goal is to write it as x plus or minus something squared. So we have x. What multiplies to 9 and adds to 6? 3 and 3, so it's x plus 3 squared. This one, y. What multiplies to +4 adds to -4? -2 squared equals 18. So, this is a circle. The center. Think of it as what makes the inside of this parenthesis 0? What would make x plus 3 equal 0? What makes it y minus 2 equal 0? Your radius. 18 is r squared. So we have to do the square root of 18, which would break down into 3 radical 2. So that was completing the square. Okay. What other questions do you guys have? Is there anything on the study guide, like a problem I haven't worked, or a problem you want another one like? Verse 6, I just told you to answer the question and use a graph to support your answer. If I'm just saying sketch a graph, it doesn't have to be real precise. Okay, so this is not the type of question where I'm checking that you have 3 exact points, a parent function, and a final transformation. Those are the ones, like question 7, where I say, graph the function, give a parent function. If I say just do a sketch, I am looking for something really basic. Now, if you get confused, you can always plug in points to help you. But do you know what the square root graph looks like? Yeah. And what would a +4 do to it? Inside is x and does the opposite. So it's under the radical, so it's moving my x. So it's the opposite. And then I'm asking you to look at that graph and tell me what your domain is. -4 to infinity. Left to right. So So on these, I'm wanting you to sketch a graph to help answer the question. If I said the square root of x plus 4, so it's a square root graph, the 4 is on the outside. Outside is y, does what it says, so it's just going to move it up 4 on the y-axis. So, what's your range? 4 to infinity. So on those, if I'm saying sketch, you don't have to take a ton of time to make sure all your points are perfect. You're just giving me the shape and the correct spot and using that to answer your questions. Can you tell me, is this a function? Yeah, how do we know it's a function? Okay, what's my domain? And those get brackets because we hit them. What's my range? If I ask you increasing, decreasing, constant, what does this graph start out doing? Decreasing. You give me the x's. So it doesn't matter if you do parentheses or bracket on this. You could say it's starting at -3 and it decreases until I get to what x value? Then what happens after 2? Increases from 2 to 4. So you're not telling me order pairs, you're giving me intervals on that. What if I asked you for f of 0? -2. That's saying when x is 0, tell me what your y value is on the graph. If I asked you to find f of 2, when your x is 2, your y is -3. So I could ask you those questions about your graphs. Step back. F minus g of x. What am I asking you to do? So function f minus function g. Distribute the negative, combine my terms so we get x squared minus 3x minus 6. What if I asked for f composed with g of x? What am I asking you to do? So g is 3x plus 2. How do I put that into function f? Goes in for the x. Then what would you have to do? FOIL. So you get 9x squared plus 6x and plus 6x would be plus 12x plus 4. And we still have that minus 4 on the end. So 9x squared plus 12x. What if I asked you for g of f of 3? What does that mean? Good. So I go to function f. If I plug in a 3, what do I get out? Right, 9 minus 4 is 5. Then I go to function g. I plug in a 5. And we get 17. Okay, so I could ask you to do these function operations with or without numbers. What if I asked for the domain of f divided by g? So f divided by g would be x squared minus 4 over 3x plus 2. How do I find the domain of that? And at the bottom can't be 0. So x can't be -2/3. And then you always write it as -2/3. We know how to do the compositions. We know how to do the domain of a square root. Anything else you guys want me to talk about? We have a few minutes if there's something you want a problem like. So sad. What's the equation of a vertical line? X equals, what's the slope of a vertical line? Undefined. Vertical line, so if I say like x equals 2, that's just your vertical line at 2. Slope is undefined. What's your domain? Only x we hit is 2. What's my range? If I say f of x equals -3, f of x is the same thing as y. Y equals a number is horizontal. What's the slope of a horizontal line?
0.
What's the domain of that one? What's the range of that line?